Welcome to Payoff Pitch, Action Network's Major League Baseball betting podcast. I'm Mike Calabrese, joined by a host of baseball luminaries. I got Sean Zerillo, I got Collin Whitchurch. We even have Grant Neiffer later in the episode giving out his home run props for Tuesday. And usually I start these episodes when we have, a full assortment of talent here to discuss baseball with an open-ended question. But we don't have time to play GM cosplay or a 15-minute bull session about the Chicago White Sox farm system. I apologize, Collin. We're going to have to get to that and some other episode. I know that our audience is just dying to hear what's coming down the pike for the White Sox, but we have over 10 games to discuss here. I know you guys have some overlap in terms of player props and also double dipping from the same game. So let's hop right into it. Let's go to best bets, then to favorite underdog, and the rest of your card before we get to Neiffer's home run props. We're going to start with Sean's best bet here. He loves the Rays in lots of different ways. The Tampa Bay money line at plus 110, first five at plus 107, and over in the game at 8.5. And why is this the case? It's Jack Flaherty Day. He has surrendered 21 runs across his last four starts, and the Tigers have dropped all four of those by 6 runs per game. So he's been getting absolutely shelled. They've been getting crushed in his starts. And it's not that hard. You can look at basically any of his stats if you want to go ahead and cherry pick. But a big reason for this is his fastball velocity has just been trending in the wrong direction, really going on 2 years now. And the issue is that he just doesn't have the breaking stuff to make up for his lack of velocity and being able to set up his other pitches. Yes, his knuckle curve still grades out really well, but when he doesn't have his fastball or really a slider that can, miss a lot of bats, it's just difficult to get by with one pitch. And at this point, fading Jack has been the right way to go about it. With this being said, you have the Rays game, the first five, the over. Did you also consider throwing in a Rays team total over as well, Sean?
I did. I just wanted both ends of just Rays money line and over with a little bit of the first five. That way, in case, the Rays pitching staff blows up, this game is going to go over and we at least hopefully get some of it back with the total, in general. But yeah, obviously the team total was something that intrigued me. I had just already fired on all three of the others before I really started to consider. I basically came down to bet Rays first five, bet Rays game. And then I was like, do I want to bet the team total too, or do I want some amount of hedge in case the Tigers do score some runs here? So it's a partial hedge, I guess, betting the over in addition to the Rays. But if there's a Jack Flaherty start at this point, you could assume I'm either going to be on the over or on the other team's money line in some respect, and just consider the longer context and the longer trend of where we've been with Flaherty, because first half of last season, he was an ace level pitcher, 2.53 expected ERA or expected FIP, 28% strikeout minus walk rate, absolutely phenomenal. But then as he progressed towards the second half, the Tigers tried to trade him to the Yankees. He failed the medicals. The Yankees backed out of the trade. The Dodgers ended up trading for him, but then the free agent market for him this offseason was extremely soft because teams saw those medicals and they knew there was significant concern and potential that he would decline the longer the 2025 season went along. And you've already seen the downward trend. First off, he trended downward last year. The strikeout minus walk rate dipped 9% in the second half compared to the first half. The expected FIP went up a full run. Now look at his 2025 numbers. Through May 31st, Flaherty, 3.95 ERA, 3.4 expected FIP, 22% strikeout minus walk rate, 100 pitching plus. Second half, or I should say in June and July, I believe it's 6 or 7 starts in June and July. ERA is up to 6.6. Okay, he's gotten hit, but the expected FIP, again, up a run from 3.4 to 4.3. The strikeout minus walk rate, I said dipped 9% second half versus first half last year. It's down 8% in June and July compared to April and May. So a very similar dip in performance, but he didn't even start this year at the same level he started last year. He started this year at his second half 2025 level or 2024 level, even below that, and he's continued that downward progression. So just to compare it, first half 2024 to June and July 2025, first half 2024, 22% strikeout minus walk, second half 2020 or first half 2024, 28% strikeout minus walk, past 6 starts, 14% strikeout minus walk, and the pitching plus has gone down from about 105 to 92. So I think everything about Jack Flaherty, obviously in the data, but also watching him, I've watched each and every one of these starts. He's able to get through innings. Sometimes he has that slider. Sometimes he has the feel for it. Generally, he does not. And there are a lot of uncompetitive pitches. and a lot of uncompetitive counts where he's finding himself in, where I'm watching these innings just waiting for the implosion to come. And by the second, third time through the order against him, these guys are being really patient, spitting at those breaking balls in the dirt. If he's able to bend one in and hit the outside corner, great, but you're not going to do it multiple times to me. So they've been waiting him out, getting on base with walks, and then eventually he loses a fastball or a hanging slider in the zone, and they pounce on it. And, to the point about the overs, these offenses have been red hot, both of these teams. Last 30 days, the Rays are number 1 in terms of WRC+. Detroit is number 4. But, besides the Flaherty piece, besides the Pepio preferred to Flaherty piece, prefer the Rays bullpen here too. Top 5 over the past month, both in expected FIP and strikeout minus walk. Tigers closer to 10th in expected FIP, and they're 19th in strikeout minus walk right out of their bullpen over the past 30 days. So all of that's to say, I make the Rays favorites in both halves, about minus 114 in both halves. You can bet them up to minus 105 in either half. And then I make the total about 8.9, bet the over 8.5 to minus 105. If you want to bet some Rays team total over instead, absolutely understand the case. I didn't want to triple down basically on the Rays. I wanted something on the Tigers offense, considering they've been solid too. But yeah, I think Pepio is significantly more upside to throw a good start than Flaherty does.
If you like that over, buckle up, listeners, because we have 6 more in this episode, and you don't have to wait long. Collin, I'm going to get you in here with your first over of the episode, over 9.5 between the Mets and Orioles. You can point to numerous offensive stats explaining the Mets' offensive shortcomings this season, most notably Soto's struggles with runners on base. But you know what can help with that? Brandon Young. Come on down, Brandon Young. WHIP, ERA, walk rate, it's all hideous for the Orioles starter in this one. Would you sprinkle a walk over? I know you're the walk king here in terms of props on Young, or do you think it's unlikely he gets past the 4th inning and that cuts into his potential to issue out those free passes?
Yeah, that would be my biggest concern with Young. He's actually the less important pitcher in this handicap here. I do have an angle if you want to get into the walks, which I'll get into with the other starting pitcher, Clay Holmes, who is kind of the more uncertain element in this over. I'm a big fan of Clay Holmes. I think his transition to starting pitcher has been a success. He's now about 30 innings clear of his career high in innings, and he suddenly can't stop allowing home runs. As a sinker baller, he didn't allow a single home run in his first 7 starts of the season. In his last 10 starts, he's now allowed 11 home runs. Obviously, home runs are relatively luck-based, but the Orioles do have a top 10 home run to fly ball rate. So if they're putting the ball in the air against Holmes tonight, it could be more of the same for him. More concerning for Holmes from a season-long perspective has been his walks. In those same most recent 10 starts, he's walked 26 against just 37 strikeouts and 56 and 2/3 innings. He has 39 walks total on the season. And I think the Mets were probably expecting a bit more swing and miss from him as a starter than the sub 20% K rate he's sporting right now. The Baltimore offense obviously been trending upward a little bit since the slow start to the season. It's been league average since the start of June. Against right-handed pitching, they've been above average on the season and have actually been top 10 against right-handed pitching since the start of June. So I think that Baltimore's offense matches up pretty well against Holmes here, who's been pretty helter-skelter. I think in his more positive starts, it seemed that he's been getting by with a lot of smoke and mirrors because he hasn't been allowing or hasn't been inducing a lot of swing and miss. And then Young, as you mentioned, the cure for most offensive woes. I don't have a lot of concerns about the Mets offense generally, even as they slump from time to time. I still like that offense overall, especially like it against Brandon Young. You mentioned the walks. If you want to bet over 1.5 walks on Brandon Young, it's about minus 165, pretty heavily juiced. You mentioned the innings. The concern is that the Mets offense lights him up. He doesn't last long enough to even walk 2 batters. The one angle I do potentially like, I won't give out as an official play though, is if, I mentioned Holmes walks, and if you think Young is going to get there, Holmes over 1.5 walks is around the same juice as Young. So you go 2+ walks on both pitchers, it's about plus 150, which is a nice little SGP there. So, but overall, over 9.5 is a pretty high total at Camden Yards, I feel like. But I think with this pitching matchup in these offenses, we can get there.
Just wanted to point out how disastrous Holmes' command has been over the past 6-7 starts since June. He had a 13% strikeout minus walk rate through May. That is right around the league average. League average about 13.5%. 3% in June and July. He has 20 walks or 20 strikeouts and 16 walks, I believe, in his last 5 starts. I think when you combine, as Collin said, passing his career high in innings with an extreme decline in command, not even like a little hiccup in command, he is, I think the last 2 starts, he's walked more batters than he struck out. So those are like injury red flags waving very aggressively for me for Clay Holmes. And when you consider all of the other injury woes the Mets pitching has had, I think there's reason to be significantly concerned, not about Holmes' arm, but about the state of the Mets pitching staff in general. I think the Mitch Keller rumors are going to continue to increase because they just need somebody to throw innings for them.
It is Eric Fetty-esque performance out of Clay Holmes lately.
Yeah, the past month has been rough, and he's getting hit really hard. As you've said, like I think, among like the first or second start before this went really bad, I think I had the under, and then I realized the direction that his command was trending, and I've downgraded him. I've been off since, but yeah, like his projections, his FIP projections are like 3.7, 3.8, and over the past month or so, his bot ERA has gone up to 4.3. So I think that's closer to what he is now, like a 4.3 ERA pitcher instead of a mid threes sub 4 guy.
We now turn to a cross-country road trip for the Mariners playing in New York, and you guys have plays on both sides of this. I'm going to mix and match a little bit with Collin's prop, but we're going to start with the underdog that you like here, Sean, and it's the Mariners at just about plus money, plus 110 against the Yankees, with Gilbert on the hill. And here's the thing, since his return from that right elbow flexor injury, he has been on a very short leash in terms of the pitching coach, the manager. They haven't let him get past the 5th inning since his return. Do you discount the Mariners, or I should say Gilbert's impact on the Mariners in this matchup, because you figure that he's going to top out at about 80, 85 pitches and get pulled? Or do you think they take the governor off of him for the first time since his return from the injury list and let him go 6 or 7 innings in this one?
Yeah, having looked at his pitch counts is a really good point about the innings, but I do like the fact that the Mariners are coming off of an off day, so there's really no bullpen concerns behind him if he does get through 5 innings and it's tight. They want to go to their high leverage guys from there. I do prefer the Mariners bullpen to the Yankees bullpen as well. I'll get to that in a second. So not significantly concerned. If the Mariners bullpen was a little banged up, it would have given me more pause. I should mention with this game too, I put it in the app at plus 110 last night. Something you should always do when you wake up overnight, once more markets are available or once prices are more widely available around 8, 9 a.m. Eastern. I always go back and check the bets that I've already fired, see if I can cash out of any of them for free and get a better number elsewhere. So I cashed out of the plus 110 here, took plus 115 elsewhere. Just, general betting advice. If you can cash out for free at a book and take a better number elsewhere, always do that. And I do find oftentimes overnight, 8, 9 a.m., just before books start to align with one another as more liquidity comes into the market, sometimes you find a price discrepancy and can get a little bit better of a number. So upgraded the number here, but like the Mariners down to plus 105 today, I make them small favorites. I make them minus 102 in this game. Logan Gilbert, I said coming into the season, neck and neck. I had him neck and neck with Tarik Skubal. Thought that was a little bit of a controversial take, but I did have him ahead of Paul Skeens. You look at pitchers who have thrown at least 50 innings this season, Tarik Skubal is second in both expected FIP and strikeout minus walk rate. Logan Gilbert's number 1. So even though I project Skubal, I project Skeens as slightly better pitchers right now than Logan Gilbert. Regardless of the expected FIP and the strikeout minus walk, I still project Gilbert slightly behind those two guys for now. I think showing the underlying indicators at their level and even above Skubal this year speaks to how good Logan Gilbert is. And even after the IL, you see a 5 ERA since the IL stint. The expected FIP is 2.7. Strikeout minus walk rate, still near 30%. So yes, there's underlying concerns anytime a guy has an elbow injury. I'm not that concerned by it, considering his numbers post-IL are ace level territory. Not quite as good as it was before he went on the IL stint. Strikeout minus walk down like 2%, 3%. The expected FIP was 175 before the IL stint. He was pitching at an unbelievable level, but even still, I view him as the 3rd best starting pitcher in baseball and the potential to be number 2 or number 1 by the end of the year, by the end of the next 2 years. It really depends on health for Skeens and Skubal and, the potential that one of them dips. But yeah, I think Gilbert is as good as it gets. The Mariners offense, getting away from T-Mobile is much better. I feel like people don't make that adjustment as aggressively as they should, but this has been the 3rd best offense away from home this year, a 117 WRC plus, and their stats do get buried at home because it's such a difficult place to hit. But they are 15th hitting at home this year, which is much better than they typically rank. They're typically in the bottom 10. As I said, third away from home. The pen piece, the Yankees bullpen is starting to really fall apart, and they absolutely need bullpen help at the deadline. Last 30 days, 20th in expected FIP, 26th in strikeout minus walk rate, and they're down to 26th in both categories over the last 2 weeks as well. They got hit really hard by that Blue Jays unit up in Toronto. In the last piece, Will Warren, his velocity has dipped in the past 2 starts. And again, like the Mets pitching injuries, the Yankees pitching injuries are starting to add up a little bit, both in terms of the bullpen and the starting rotation. Clark Schmidt going down, and seeing the velocity trend down for Warren in his last 2 starts. He's been at 93.3 on the season. He was at 92.2 in his last outing, and the stuff plus down from 103 to 99. Body array up from 3.6 to 4.12. So I think Warren definitely trending down. The Yankees bullpen trending down. The Yankees offense has been as cold as it's been all season for the past month, and the Mariners much better away from home, fully rested bullpen, and the number 1 starting pitcher potentially in baseball. Not actually, but definitely a top 3. So yeah, I make the Mariners small favorites here. Definitely like them quite a bit today, and plus 115 certainly looks better than plus 110. So plus 1 or 5 or better on Seattle, my favorite underdog bet, and arguably my favorite money line bet, like in a silo. You know, the Tigers angle is kind of like Rays, Tigers over. You know, there's so many ways you could bet it. If you're just going to pick one money line today, say who do you like? It's the Mariners.
Sean just laid out the case for Will Warren moving in the wrong direction. Collin, you're going to zig where he zagged. You're going to go over on his 5.5 Ks at minus 125 here. And let me add in 2 more trends to the discussion when it comes to Warren. His Ks and his pitch count. He's cleared 5.5 strikeouts in 9 of his last 12 starts, but he's only averaged 86 pitches per outing because he's been run off a few times. Anything else specifically that you were targeting why you like his over on strikeouts against the M's?
Well, to be clear, I'm 100% in lockstep with Sean on the Mariners money line tonight. You know, we've said many times you can hit a strikeout over and, you know, a pitcher gets lit up. We've seen that from Will Warren quite a bit this year, in fact. And that's primarily where I'm at here, is that the Mariners present as a good strikeout opportunity for Warren, despite his struggles. You know, he's been a disappointment, I think, overall for the Yankees. 5.02 ERA. He gave up 8 earned runs in 4 innings against the Blue Jays his last time out. 4 innings, so he only got 12 outs. 4 of them were still by strikeout. He's the Mariners strike out at the 11th highest rate against right-handed pitching. And you said 9 of last 12 that he's gone over this total. I think he's struck out 6 or more in half of his starts this year. And this is popping right now as our top pitching prop projection in the Action app. That kind of put me over the top there. It's not a heavily juiced prop. You're getting it minus 125 right now on the over 5.5. I think that for all of Warren's struggles, the Yankees pitching struggles as a whole, they're letting him go deep. They're letting him try to pitch through trouble. As you mentioned, a lot of times ending in the 80s. His last 2 starts, he threw 199 pitches respectively. And that's in one of those, he allowed 8 earned runs. In the other one, he walked 4 batters in 5 innings. And he still struck out 7 in that start as well. So I do think that the outs that Warren records today will heavily trend toward the strikeout. So over 5.5 seems like a good proposition, despite the fact that I like the Mariners money line as well. And you know, these books kind of reward you sometimes in the SGP department when you go with these reverse correlations. So if you want to look at a Mariners money line, Warren strikeout over angle, that probably pay out pretty decently as well.
Yeah, there's no reason why a guy can't go over the strikeout total and still give up some runs early. Like the Yankees need length from their starting pitchers. Their bullpen has been terrible. So even if a guy falls behind 4-0, the Yankees know they have a good offense. At that point, it's just about catching up. So yeah, I feel like Boone doesn't have a particularly aggressive leash with his starters. I mean, maybe after an off day, the week of the All-Star break, like you try a little bit harder with your bullpen to win games. But yeah, the Yankees bullpen has been terrible. I think he gets left in even if he gives up runs.
We might see some Schlitter tonight, right? Their new toy back there.
Yep, we have the potential when the Yankees play the A's for a Schlitter against a Nick Kurtz matchup, which would break the brains of most announcers. So Schlitter, one of the best new names coming to the bigs in quite some time. It's break down the spelling of it in multiple ways. You can form multiple very awkward and funny pronunciations depending on how quickly the announcer gets through the phonetics of the last name. So yeah, Big time arm though. Fastball north of 100, and the Yankees just need some sort of pitching out, man. Like their offense has been as cold as it's been for the year. They're still like top 4, over the past 2 weeks, over the past week. But the pitching is just running out. The Mets pitching are running out. The Yankees pitching are running out. It's tough to see. And other teams, meanwhile, like the Astros, are just bringing up Colton Gordon and Brandon Walter from the minors, who had almost no prospect pedigree and getting significant contributions for them. So pitching development continues to be maybe the most important thing organizationally for these teams, and just getting through a season with all the innings you have to throw.
Let's stick here in the favorite underdog segment and go to your pick here, Collin. The Phils plus 125 against the Giants. Bryce Harper has not moved the needle since returning from injury. He's hitting just 200 with 0 extra base hits across 20 at-bats. Obviously, he's just one bat in this lineup, but clearly you have some faith in the Phillies to break through against Robbie Ray. Sell me on that.
Yeah, so the bigger concern for me in this bet is betting on a team that has Taijuan Walker starting at pitcher. It's generally something that's going to induce some cold sweats. My optimism on betting the Phils as underdogs here is skepticism that we'll even see that much of Walker. Since getting demoted to the bullpen, he hasn't thrown more than 2 innings since May 30th. He hasn't thrown more than 43 pitches since May 30th. It's entirely possible that doesn't matter. He's a 32-year-old veteran. He's been starting his entire life until a month ago. 1 month might not blow his entire stamina. But it's not necessarily about that for the Phillies. It's about the fact that Walker isn't a very effective pitcher anymore. Letting him see an order more than once is not necessarily a winning strategy. The Phillies also called up right-hander Seth Johnson ahead of this game. I wouldn't be surprised if Rob Thompson tries to get 2-ish innings out of Walker, another 2-ish innings out of Johnson, who has been a starter for most of his minor league career until converting to the bullpen this year. Then he can kind of mix and match the rest of the way. Robbie Ray, you mentioned, has been kind of a frustrating pitcher for me to try to handicap this year. Was very down on him entering this year. He's proved me wrong in a big way. I was very down on him. He's been really good for the Giants. I just don't think this is necessarily the best matchup for him. The Phillies are a pretty split neutral offense. They also sport a walk rate against lefties that's in the top half of the league, and a strikeout rate, that's the percentage of time they do strike out, is in the bottom 10. When Ray's at his best, he's missing bats and avoiding walks. That'll be tough to do against the Phillies offense. Also, when you look at last night's game, the Giants won 3-1. They had to use 4 high leverage relievers, including 23 pitches out of Camilo Doval. The Phillies only used Orion Kirkring and Max Lazar. So if the game's tight late, I like the Phillies as well, although the Giants did avoid using their best reliever. Everyone's favorite, Randy Rodriguez, last night, so he should be available tonight. All that adds up. The Phillies are the better team here. I think getting them a slight underdog is an overreaction to just a Robbie Ray versus Taijuan Walker pitching matchup, which obviously trends in favor of the Giants. But I think I trust Thompson to navigate around that a decent amount, and I think the Phillies bats can have some success here against Ray. So Phillies money line about plus 125. That's my favorite underdog today.
Phil Cuzzy took money out of her pocket in this game last night. If anybody was watching this game, the most atrocious home plate umpiring performance of the season, arguably the most atrocious performance I've seen from an umpire since Angel Hernandez was let go. He missed 20 calls in the game, and he got directly vindictive against the Phillies dugout for arguing balls and strikes. He punched out Bryce Harper like he was umpiring, like he was Eric Gregg in the 1997 World Series. Punched out Bryce Harper because the Phillies dugout started arguing balls and strikes. And then the next inning, Orion Kirkring gave up, I think, a leadoff hit by pitch. So runner on first, no out, pitching to Matt Chapman. Throws a ball, I think it was an 0-2 pitch, throws a ball high outside corner, hits the corner. You could argue it's borderline fine. It hit the corner. Umpire lets it go. Again, he had just called Bryce Harper out on strikes that were like a foot wide of the zone. Could argue it was high, sure. Kirkring then throws 2 sliders, perfect sliders, bottom outside corner, fully in the zone, never not in the zone. No question they were ever not in the zone. No call because the Phillies dugout was still arguing the fastball. And then the exact same pitch, when I say the exact same pitch, same location, hit the target again, still no call. So Phil Cuzzy went full-blown vindictive against the Phillies dugout for arguing balls and strikes. Matt Chapman struck out 3 times in the same at-bat, which should have made it runner on first, 1 out. Instead, he singled, got the eventual winning run to third base on that. Kerkering walked the next batter, or I believe hit the next batter because he was so rattled. And then the Phillies ended up giving up 2 runs in that sequence. But yeah, just the worst, by far the worst umpiring performance I've seen this year. And I mean, just submit that tape for the robot umpire committee, because that was case in point of why we need to get rid of human umpires, because they should not ever be influenced by people arguing whether or not they're doing a bad job, because he was doing a bad job and was rightfully being called out for it, regardless of whether you're allowed to do that. And he got vindictive against the Phillies, and he frankly directly impacted the outcome of that game. I can't say that often about an umpire. I do not come on here regularly and complain about umpires. I'm done about complaining about umpires on Twitter. But I will tell you, I watch a lot of baseball. Phil Cuzzy gave the Giants the win last night. That was absolutely ridiculous.
All right, let's close out the favorite underdog segment with a twofer. You like the Twins against the Cubs. They're about plus 120 out in the market, and over 9 in that game as well. The Twins are interesting because they're one of the better home teams, particularly among middling squads in the bigs. And them playing them as a short favorite here is an interesting angle when you consider Woods Richardson is getting the ball for the Twins, because he looked as though he was trending towards assignment or move to the pen. His ERA had ballooned to 5.74 at the beginning of June, but he's clearly found something lately. In his last 4 starts, he's just allowed 4 earned runs. He's cut down on the long ball, and he's really overall begun to live up to the hype that was, around his career when he was drafted in the second round in 2018. Any other angle that you like? Is this a fade of the Cubs? Do you just like the timing? Talk me through why the Twins popped here and are your favorite underdog.
Yeah, I don't think Shota's looked as good since he came back off of the IL. He had a hamstring strain, so I wasn't concerned about the velocity coming back, but it's been down in 2 starts, and his stuff has been down as well, and he's given up quite a few bombs. And you look at the environment for this game, Shota, we always talk about with the wind blowing out, is significantly vulnerable because he allows such a high percentage of fly balls, 56% fly ball rate this season. Simeon Woods Richardson, a 49% fly ball rate. So you have 2 very heavy fly ball oriented pitchers going in a game where the wind is blowing out 8 miles an hour to right field, the target field. So I do think we see runs in this game. I make this total about 9.5. I like the over 9 to minus 110, but I do also like the Twins, considering I think Shota is a little bit overvalued at the moment. Pre-IL stint, averaging 91.2 on his fastball, 99 stuff plus. 276 body ERA, 2 starts since the IL stint. As I said, the fastball velocity down to 90.5 and 90.7 miles an hour. So minus 1.2 and minus 1 versus his season average. Stuff plus down from 99 on the year to 91 and 93 in those starts. And the body ERA up from 276 to 434. So Shota overvalued in my opinion right now. The Cubs bullpen extremely sketchy. 24th in expected FIP, 27th in strikeout minus walk. They've been a little bit better in their recent splits, but I just do not trust the arms coming out of that bullpen, and I don't project them as anything better than a league average unit. Meanwhile, the Twins, you're giving me 2 shaky starters here. I think the Twins have a significant bullpen advantage in this matchup. 2nd in expected FIP, 5th in strikeout minus walk on the season, but they rank 1st by both body ERA and pitching plus. They're 5th in body ERA. They're 1st in pitching plus, though, and I believe they're 1st in stuff plus as well. Some elite high-powered arms coming out of this Twins bullpen, a relatively well-rested bullpen, give them a big bullpen advantage over the Cubs. And the difference that I see between the Cubs and the Twins bullpen is significantly larger than my projected difference right now between a injured Shota or a potentially reduced Shota and Simeon Woods Richardson. So yeah, Twins lineup too. Royce Lewis came back over the past week. Really all they're missing right now from what they would like to have is Luke Keyshaw. This is the healthiest the Twins have looked all year. Buxton going to be in the home run derby he's having, or trending towards potentially a career season. So I think the Twins a little bit undervalued in this game. I make them plus 105. I would take them down to plus 115. And then, as I said, I might prefer the over at 9 all the way up to minus 110, considering the fly ball tilt of these pitchers and the wind blowing out.
Before we get to the rest of your card, we are going to have Grant Neiffer come in with his home run props here on Tuesday. So let's speed run through a whole bunch of overs. Let's start with Toronto and the Chicago White Sox sitting at 8.5. 9 straight wins for the Jays. They're now perched atop the AL East. The lineup has come alive. They're averaging 7 runs per game across this win streak, and they draw Aaron Savale in this matchup, who's been fine since being acquired from Milwaukee. But given how hot the Jays lineup has been, do you consider them to be the safer bet in terms of doing the heavy lifting as it relates to this over sitting at 8.5? And if so, would you be interested in swapping out the team total swapping in as opposed for the actual over between the two teams at 8.5?
Yeah, I looked at my card this morning and I was like, oops, all overs. That never happens to me. I usually prefer to bet unders, and I usually have a better balance of them. But I do think the market has been, unders have crushed this year, and I just think there's been more value in overs in general of late. I said yesterday about the Blue Jays matchup, I bet the over in this game yesterday. I said they are a cumulative over team where they work and grind down pitching staffs progressively throughout a series, throughout a game, and they eventually get to you. They ground down Shane Smith yesterday. They ground down Sean Burke yesterday, eventually got him for 6 runs, I believe, in the 6th inning. Yeah, I think I would be okay swapping out a team total here just because you probably need a big inning from the Jays at some point in order to cover this over 8.5, but I projected it at 9.5. I would bet over 9 to -110. Some rain in this forecast, which is going to increase the humidity in the area, which is partially what increased my projected total in this game. But just to reiterate my points from yesterday, despite the Jays offense being very good, despite their bullpen season-long metrics being good, their bullpen has really struggled over the past month. 30th in expected FIP, 27th in strikeout minus walk, 28th in body array over the past 30 days. And Chris Bassett, too, was much better earlier in the year. His expected numbers have come up closer to league average in the past few weeks. So, yeah, Jays and White Sox over 9 to -110. If you want to swap in a Jays team total, I'd probably be fine with that as well. But I do think the Jays bullpen and Chris Bassett are both capable of giving up runs. So I want contributions from both sides here, and think it's definitely worth continuing to bet into, as the Jays are going to continue to grind down opposing bullpens. And there's no better opposing bullpen to grind down than the White Sox, maybe the Nationals. That's like the only alternative I consider as the best bullpen matchup for opposing teams. So yeah, Jays should get runs tonight, but game over 9.
Big revenge spot here, as a lot of people forget Chris Bassett's a former White Sox. The White Sox, by the way, with Colson Montgomery off to a 5-13 start. I just needed to throw out some White Sox farm system talk because Mike said I wasn't allowed to at the beginning. And by the way, Sean, can you name who the White Sox acquired when they traded Chris Bassett 11 years ago?
They traded him to the A's?
Yes.
I would assume. Oh. No, I can't.
So that was the Jeff Samardzija trade. And also going to Oakland in that deal was Marcus Semien. So
unbelievable. Unbelievable trade.
I had to throw that in there.
What's your excitement for, obviously the White Sox are not doing anything in 2025, but when the Mets first brought up Jose Reyes, David Wright, there was this excitement for watching this team that was still a sub 500 team. So on a scale of 1 to 10, your interest in watching the White Sox on April 1st versus your interest in watching the White Sox on July 8th. What is it?
Well, the problem with this exercise is that as White Sox fans, we literally just did this 5 years ago. It was really exciting to watch Yoan Moncada come up and Eloy Jimenez come up and Dylan Cease come up. And now it's these guys aren't even as exciting as those guys. Yeah. And they've all been playing well. Mydroth's been good. Kyle Teal's been good. Colson now has been good. So I would say, yeah, I'm more interested in watching them now than I am in April 1st. But as far as level of excitement, how soon can the Ishbias take over the team? That's the answer.
If you were holding a 5 million to 1 Jeff the Shark Samardzija mention tickets, go ahead and cash that. All right, I'm going to allow you guys to discuss a game together because you both have plays in the Atlanta against the A's matchup. We'll start with Sean liking over 10. The wind is actually blowing in Sacramento, but the A's have been playing in high-scoring games for the past week. Their games have averaged 11 total runs across their last 7. They're the second most profitable over bet team in the AL this entire season. And the Braves are sending Didier Fuentes, a.k.a. the Silent Assassin, according to his baseball reference page. They don't have a pronunciation guide, but they have his nickname in there already. Silent Assassin is interesting because opposing bats have not been silent against him. The Colombian righty has given up 12 earned in his first 12 innings worth of work at the major league level. So I can definitely see why we're trending towards an over here. And I know that Collin also likes him to go over on his earned run prop, which is only sitting at 2.5. Let's start there, Collin. Is there anything that would lead you to believe that 2.5 is a trap? Like, should this be laddered up? And if so, how high would you go on his over on earned runs in this one?
It certainly could be a trap. It certainly seems like a trap because 2.5, especially just juiced at -20, seems super reasonable for Fuentes, who was born about 2 weeks after I graduated high school. I was really excited about him when they called him up. The Braves kind of have a habit of doing this. Like, they have this pop-up pitching prospect. They call him up way earlier than anyone expects. And so I was like all aboard, like, all right, Spencer Schwellenbach 2.0, let's go. Hasn't quite been a smooth for him. 12 earned runs in 3 starts and 12 innings. Maybe this is a trap in the sense that, the A's offense can be a little bit of a roller coaster. But I'm always going to be keeping an eye on pitching props, especially when they're pitching in West Sacramento. Tonight just feels like a bad spot for him. He escaped his last start against the Angels at home without allowing a home run. But he still allowed 3 now in 3 starts. He allowed 2 starts ago. And I think that this ballpark is just going to be a nightmare for him. And it's kind of funny to say that because you could argue that Fuentes will be as unaffected by the conditions of pitching in a minor league stadium as anyone because he so recently was pitching in a minor league stadium. With the humid weather in Sacramento, it's a AAA park, and he's facing a major league team with a lot of power in this minor league park, and he's been susceptible to the long ball. He's only got his ground ball rate is, I believe, below 30% right now to start his career. So yeah, over 2.5 at -120. I haven't looked at the ladder options yet. If you want to go up to 4 or 5, kind of play on, the Rookers and the Soderstroms and the Jacob Wilsons, kind of lighten him up. I wouldn't blame you.
Sean, I feel like he's made a compelling case for the over. Anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, the perk factor is probably not discussed enough for Sacramento. Like, it's tied with Coors Field right now. It's a 25% boost for runs. It's incredible boost for doubles, 37% for doubles. But what I think is most interesting is the potential that this mound is not up to major league standards. We've seen some rumors about the mound in Cincinnati potentially not being as high as other mounds. Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly talking about that. I think we have some data that suggests that the mound in Sacramento might not be up to MLB standards, particularly with regard to the strikeout and walk splits. Strikeouts are down 5% in Sacramento compared to league average. Walks are up 9%. I do think batters are just getting an easier time reading the ball off of the mound, regardless of the dimensions of the park, regardless of the teams that have played there. The strikeout and walk factors and the splits there seem to indicate to me that pitchers are just not able to be as effective, regardless of where the ball is flying once it goes off the bat. Hitters seem to have a much easier time reading what's coming out of the hand of the opposing pitchers, or potentially they're not getting as much break on their pitches due to mound height. So that's something I want to investigate further. I want to look at spin rates and things like that in Sacramento compared to other parks. Collin mostly covered it with Fuentes. The one piece I want to add, and he has great stuff. I think he has massive potential, but he's in so many 3-ball counts. Even his last start, he got 6 strikeouts. I believe 2 of them came on 3-2 counts. And it's not like he's throwing anything particularly targeted to spots to get by these hitters. He's leaving stuff in the middle of the zone. They just happen to swing and miss through them because he does have good stuff. But I think at some point, or not even at some point, an offense is likely to take advantage. Offenses are going to continue to take advantage so long as he continues to put himself in deep counts and walk guys and fall behind. 24% strike or called strike plus whiff rate, major league average around 28%. So great stuff, 110 stuff plus, but Fuentes, the control is just not there right now. I make this total around 11, so the over 10.5 to about -110. One of my favorite bets among these overs today. I mean, this was one I didn't even have to think about twice. If I show value on an over in Sacramento right now, it's pretty easy for me to go ahead and click the button.
The mound stuff at Sacramento is fascinating. Like, Luis Severino's at war with the team right now because he's like, this isn't what I signed up for, and they're also kind of like, we're paying you $45 million. Shut up. It's one of those situations where like nobody's right, or nobody's wrong, or everybody's wrong, but Severino's probably less wrong. I just want to know where the players' union is in this. Like, there is stuff in the CBA about working conditions. Like, this is ultimately a working conditions issue, right?
Yeah.
you work any job, you work in a factory, there are rules, at your union of how the working conditions need to be. The working conditions in Sacramento are suboptimal. Many people are talking about it, home players and away players. And I just want to know where the union is. Maybe we're all ignorant, and the language in the CBA isn't strict enough to where they can do anything about it. But like, they agreed to let this team play X amount of years in a AAA stadium, not just a AAA stadium, but one that they share. Like, this field gets no time off. The Sacramento River Cats play there when the Athletics are not there. It's pretty absurd, and it's only going to get worse because they're going to be playing there beyond this season and for the next 2 to 3 years at least.
The image of Zerillo standing with his agent looking at Sutter Health Park right after he signed with the A's just sticks in my head, because they're looking out on the field and Zerillo kind of has this like, what the fuck did I get myself into look on his face? Like how much of a cut of that $51 million did you get for me to sign with this team? Right. Yeah, I think about that image of Zerillo looking at the field for the first time quite a bit, and I feel like he is in a nightmare that he can't escape from at the moment.
I'm glad you guys brought this up, because a working condition argument for the mound conditions in Sacramento or in Cincinnati, I think it's a compelling discussion point. And my only follow-up would be, what would be the equivalent for you in terms of offices that you've worked in? Would it be a bad snack situation in the kitchen? Would it be having a mouse that doesn't have a right click, like going from a Windows-based computer to a Mac computer? Like, what's the equivalent in terms of it impacting your overall enjoyment of your job and the ability to function at your highest level?
Well, when I worked nights in designing newspapers, it was like the owners of the building had the AC on a timer, and you'd get to 10, 11 o'clock and the AC isn't on anymore. And I'm working in Austin, Texas. And yeah, we complained all the time. Believe it or not, we didn't have a union in Texas. But yeah, that would probably be the most comparable thing for me. That's my Sacramento Sutter Health Park comparable.
I used to have to commute 2 hours each way round trip from Eastern Long Island to Jersey City for a job working at an investment bank. That was partially my choice, but also partially to save money. But now I work from home. So saving 2 hours each way, 4 hours total on a commute every day is like pitching at Sutter Health Park versus pitching elsewhere. So that is my Sutter Health Park, was my 2 hour commute each way round trip.
I worked at a startup about 10 years ago, and I'd say the mix was like 6 or 7 women and like 35 guys. And there was a women's room and there was a men's room. And the math just wasn't mathing for the men's room, particularly with all the young sales guys, probably drinking a lot of Bud Heavies the night before. So I would just have to go into Midtown Manhattan and find like a boutique hotel and just use the bathroom lobby, which ended up working out fine. But I'm just taking hour-long, 90-minute bathroom breaks. Hey, listen, if you guys want to put us in a position like this, it's on management to have to suffer the loss of efficiency. All right, I'm glad that we got to go down this trail, but we still got more overs to discuss, because we got 7 total on the card. This is only number 6. The over train continues to chug along. We got the Rangers and the Halos. The total is sitting at 8. Perfect weather out in California, the wind blowing out in Anaheim. But here's the bugaboo. We got Eovaldi on the hill. If you use this number across all of his starts this season, if you use that total of 8, under would have cashed 11 times, lost twice, and pushed once. Does that give you any pause, Sean?
Yeah, absolutely. But, I factored in Eovaldi pretty heavily. I have an ace adjustment that I put in for these pitchers who have higher strikeout rates, more of an impact on the opposing offenses. I gave it to both Eovaldi and Soriano, frankly, because Soriano is a goofy pitcher in that he has a very high ground ball rate. So there are days where he's almost impossible to hit, or in the ground ball tilt is working. So, I factored in, or I basically upgraded both of these starting pitchers, and I still make this total about 8.75 given the weather. Both offenses heating up a little bit. Texas is 15th over the last 30 days. They've been bottom 5 all season. 9th over the last week. Finally have a fully healthy group together with Seager, Semien hitting a little bit better, Langford in there. Like, this is the best the Texas offense has looked the entire season. The Angels also 7th over the last couple weeks. They've been below average if you add it up. Otherwise, 30 days, 7 days, etc., season long. But I do think both of these offenses, the position player groups, are a little bit underrated. I've also discussed regularly the Angels are terrible defensively, and they have a really bad bullpen too. So you always have the potential for the opposing team to put up a bunch of runs late against the Angels or for them to make mistakes throughout the game and to give up runs. But I'd bet the over 8.5 here up to even money. With two offense that I think are a little bit underrated. I mean, the Rangers have been the best under team all season. They are likely to go on a run at some point where they score some runs and cash them over. So I think some positive regression here. And 8.5 with plus money on the over.
The seventh and final over of this episode, the Snakes and the Padres, sitting at 7.5. Merrill Kelly, whether he wants to blame the mound or just in general, kind of his tailing off in terms of his efficiency, wherever he's placing the blame, he's come back down to earth, and he really struggled with his command in his last start against the Giants. When his changeup is dialed in, he's obviously one of the better pitchers in their rotation. So I'm assuming that you're thinking that his commands, particularly with his breaking stuff and his off speed, is going to continue to struggle against a Padres lineup that really needs to get things moving in the right direction in terms of wins and losses before the All-Star break in an ultra-competitive NL West. What are your thoughts here on them surpassing the 7.5 total that's listed out in the market? And if you like over 7.5, any laddering, any, giving another runner or run and a half and getting plus money on this play?
Yeah, I think you can take an 8.5 here. I talked about it yesterday, like with the Jays, and the cumulative effects of their offense on opposing teams. There's a cumulative effect of the Arizona bullpen being really banged up, but also struggling, and the need to get more length out of their starting pitchers. They would have pulled Zach Gallen a little bit earlier than they did last night. They just needed him to get through 6 innings. They kind of need the same for Merrill Kelly here again tonight. But as I said yesterday, Martinez, Puck, Thompson went on the IL over the weekend. They never really had Kendall Graveman pitch for them this year either. So arguably their 4 best relievers are out of their current bullpen. 18th in expected FIP, 13th in strikeout minus walk, but probably bottom 10, pretty clearly, if not bottom 5 with their current group. And Arizona, they got Corbin Carroll back, 10 days ago, a week ago. They have been the second best offense against right-handed pitching this season without Carroll for a lot of that stretch. Now, the big concern here is that Ketel Marte was scratched yesterday with a groin injury. They put out an initial lineup with Marte in, and they ended up pulling him out. So actually, by the time that game went off yesterday, there was no value for me on the over, even though I gave it out on the show, even though it ended up cashing. If you had told me the lineups in advance, I would not have bet that over. With Marte expected to be back in tonight, because it seems like he will be, I make this total 8.4. I bet the over 8 to minus 105. If he is not in the lineup, it will essentially be a break-even bet at current prices. It'll bring my projected total down closer to 8 rather than 8.4. So just watch for the Ketel Marte injury news. You could bet it now. If he's in, it'll go up. If he's not in, it'll likely go down or stay at the same level. Hopefully you could cash out the ticket at that point if he's not in the lineup. But yeah, just keep an eye on Marte and the Marte piece. But I do think the cumulative thing of the Arizona bullpen, the Padres also stranded a ton of runners in scoring position last night, which they tend to do because they do not hit for power. But yeah, I think the D-backs are not fully out of this yet. And the Padres, Yankees seemed like they started off really hot. Padres have been a below 500 team since their hot start, since the first half of April. Padres have been a sub 500 team. So I still think they're trending closer to selling than they're at buying in the next couple weeks.
If you like those overs, 7 of which we've listed out, I got 3 more for you if you want to consider over 0.5 home runs. Let's toss it over to Grant Neiffer from Scores and Odds for his favorite dingers here on Tuesday.
Thanks, guys. It's Dinger Tuesday. We get a 50% profit boost over on FanDuel. Normally got 3 legs, but today I've only got 2, but I really like both these guys. Let's get right into it, starting off with Byron Buxton to hit a home run. Plus 265, plus 275. It's moving a little bit over at FanDuel. Going up against a guy who gives up a lot of bombs in Shota. Shota's been absolutely crushed this year by Righty Power, giving up over 2 home runs per 9. The weather is good over in Minnesota. Wind blowing out about 8 miles per hour. Low 80s temps, decent humidity. Ball should be flying. Buxton has been on an absolute tear over the last month, getting, I think, 10 home runs in that period. This guy has always had a ton of pop. He's probably getting ready for the home run derby, and the spot is just far too good. Even at low odds, I'm still really liking it. Parlay him together with Ronald Acuna. You get him at plus 300. You got 20-1 odds on this boost. Acuna in a great spot over in Sacramento. Gets a matchup versus Jeffrey Springs. Springs is a gas can for righty power, giving up 1.64 home runs per 9. Good fly ball numbers, good hard contact numbers. He's always been a plus matchup for righty power. Acuna been one of the best hitters in the league since coming back from injury. Clearly has not lost a step. Weather over in Sacramento, great. Winds blowing out at 9 miles an hour in what should be a very receptive ballpark. 4 wind. Temps, low 80s, decent humidity here. Ball should be flying. Acuna is good. Springs, not as good. So this spot right here is great for him, even at plus 300 odds. Parlay them together with that 50% boost. And guess what? You get 20.4 to 1 odds on the parlay. That's your Dinger Tuesday parlay. I'm out of here. Yeah.
That'll do it for today's episode of Payoff Pitch. Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to tail some of the bets that you heard from Collin, Sean, or Grant, just look for the quick slip link in the episode description. And don't forget to download the free award-winning Action Network app and drop us a 5-star rating and review wherever you listen to the podcast. Also, check out our Action Network Discord to cut it up with Major League Baseball betting enthusiasts. There's a link in the episode description of this podcast as well. We'll be back on Friday with more best bets. For Collin Whitchurch, Grant Neiffer, and Sean Zerillo, I'm Mike Calabrese. Thank you for listening to Payoff Pitch, Action Network's Major League Baseball betting podcast. And as always, best of luck with all your bets.